I don't know how to handle change. I don't know how to handle discomfort. So I'm just going to stick right here and stay in this box. It doesn't work that way. What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Hood Soft Life podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina. And in this podcast, we talk about navigating the challenges that come with growing up in the hood and leaving those challenges behind for a soft life. Growing up in the hood has its own set of challenges, but what people don't tend to tell you is not only do those challenges follow you once you've made it out physically, but they tend to intensify. So I'm bringing you along on my journey. I'm going to be honest with you about the struggles and the lessons that I'm learning to achieve a soft life. In this episode, we're going to be talking about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely feeling like I'm in a season of transition, of like new things are happening for me, and there's a lot of discomfort that's coming with this. So I wanted to talk to you guys about how to navigate those challenges and get comfortable with discomfort. So let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and start with a weekly update. I'm trying to be a little more consistent with that, give you a glimpse of what I'm doing more on a week-to-week basis, and not just, my childhood traumas as I do on this podcast episode, but this week, what do I have going on? Last week, I talked about it lightly. I am in the search for grad school programs and trying to figure out what I want to do next with my life. I feel like I'm getting ready to close the chapter on working in education and really starting to work in something that I'm passionate about. And so I've been taking a look at some grad school applications, taking a look at figuring out what do I want to do next? Where do I want to go? I don't necessarily want to stay where I'm at right now either. I'm looking to move. And so I'm just exploring my options and figuring out what I want to do next. And I can honestly say that I am excited and I'm also stressed out. I'm excited because I like new beginnings. I like the opportunities that come with, fresh starts. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm also really excited about doing something that I'm passionate about. I never really was passionate about working in education. I think the thing that I only really liked that's been consistent this entire time is working with the kids that I work with. I've never had an issue with the kids that I work with, but I'm starting to realize, like, as much as I love them, and this is no shade to them at all, because I know some of them like watch and listen to the podcast, it's just not enough. And I would never want them to find a small piece of something that they enjoy and capitalize on that. Not to say that they're a small piece at all. I love them wholeheartedly. But you have to look at the bigger picture. If that thing is not making you happy, if that experience is not making you happy, if it's not fulfilling for you, then you can move on to the next thing and it's okay. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm stressed because obviously with applications comes the dreaded essays. And so having to figure out how to articulate what it is that I'm trying to say to get into the school, to get enough money to go to the school, hopefully with no debt, is something that I find hard to do on paper, not because I can't articulate it, but more so because I'm trying to find the perfect words as I'm writing them down. And so I'm overthinking. There's so many things that are moving. I know what I want to say, but I'm so caught up in how I'm trying to say it that I just can't even get it on paper. So that's stressing me out, but I can say that I've started my essay, and for a first draft, I think I'm doing pretty good, so I'm proud of myself for that. Oh, also, I'm on April break right now, so there is no school this week, and I am loving it. I am loving the opportunity to rest and recharge, and also having the opportunity to take the time to execute on things that I need to do for my future, like writing my grad essays, working on a CV. Can we just talk about that? Like, I feel like nobody ever talks about CVs. I forget what it's called, but essentially, like, when you apply for a job and it says resume or CV, apparently CV is like a list of all your academic, like, accolades and success stories, etc., whatever. And when you're fresh out of school, a CV is more appropriate than a resume because you may not have as much experience in the workforce. Didn't know that. I thought a CV was like the fancy British way of saying a resume. Learn something new every day, and that's okay. My birthday is coming up. It is May 21st, and I'm excited about that. I talked about what I plan to do for my birthday, which is to get a new tattoo, and I'm still very much excited about that. That is still very much on the books. And as far as that goes, I don't really have anything else planned. I don't want to do a birthday dinner. I'm tired of birthday dinners. I'm tired of going out to eat. I'm clearly well fed. No shade to me at all, but I'm tired of that. So I'm ready to do something a little bit different, and this is a piece of art that I've wanted for a little while now, so I'm very excited about that. And I just want to take a quick moment to move away from that and say thank you to the people who are giving me compliments about my voice and telling me how much they really like the way it sounds in the podcast. I really appreciate it. My voice was my biggest insecurity, and it took me a long time to be able to execute on the podcast because I was very uncomfortable with the sound of my voice. Thank you for the compliments. I really appreciate it. It's really reassuring for me, and I've gotten comfortable with the sound of my own voice now. So I'm grateful for this podcast for so many reasons, and one of them being that I'm no longer insecure or uncomfortable about the sound of my voice. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the real content, the real meat and potatoes of today's topic. Getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, and why is discomfort even important in our day-to-day lives? When you sit in your comfort zone or in comfortability, it's very hard for you to grow as a person. It is very hard for you to develop, and it's very hard for you to achieve your goals. Let's say, for example, I only lived in this bubble. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see my hands. But if I only lived in this bubble and there's everything that I need in here, right? A supermarket, a laundromat if I needed that, all the things that I need are in here. The DMV's in here. Everything is in this circle. That is cool. That is great. I can get my basic needs met, but I'm not exploring the world. I'm not meeting other people outside of what's in this circle. I am not developing as a person. And when we stay in our comfort zone, we can only go but so far, right? This circle is only but so big, and you can only go but so far in this circle. So think about that with your everyday life, right? If you stay in a position where you're comfortable, like let's say your hometown, if you stay there, you can only go but so far, you can only excel but so much, especially depending on where you live. One of the biggest reasons why I'm looking to move out of the state that I currently live in is because I find that there's not that many opportunities for me to grow in the career that I want to grow in if I stay here. And I know that I want to have this career. I know a goal of mine is to grow, and so I need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and moving away from everything that I know. I'm not originally from Massachusetts. I'm from Connecticut, all of 30 minutes away from where I'm at now, and so it's not that big of a shift, but I'm very close to where I grew up. I'm very close to my family. I'm very close to the people that I went to college with and created my new life with here, and so getting up and moving to a place where I don't know pretty much anyone, depending on what state I choose to live in the end, is challenging. It's difficult, it's uncomfortable, and as a baddie with anxiety, it gives me so much anxiety because now I have to think of, is there a lot of traffic on the highways? Is there rush hour different from ours? How am I going to get to point A to point B? Driving makes me anxious. There are so many things, and it's so easy and so normal for me to want to just retreat and be like, nah, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Forget it. If I want to achieve that goal, if I want to achieve the dreams that I want and that I have for this podcast and for myself as a future entrepreneur, I can't stay here. If I want to continue to work a traditional 9-to-5 and keep my position in education and just go to different schools if that's what makes me happy, then I don't necessarily have to move if I don't want to, but I know that that's not what I want. And I know that in order for me to get to where I want to be, I'm going to have to be uncomfortable. Speaking of working in education, I just want to touch on that and just say that I've been working in education for full-time about 2.5 years, but I've been working in education since I started my freshman year of college back in 2018 till now, 2024. So that's a decent amount of time to build up a resume in this specific industry. And so I'm feeling, this is not everybody's experience, but I'm feeling that because I have X amount of experience in education, I'm almost locking myself in this career for eternity because it's very hard to make a transition out just because it's very hard to translate how your skills in education can go somewhere else if you don't know how to do that. And I'm at the point where I'm trying to learn how to do that. I'm trying to learn how to translate my skills in education into a different industry. And so I only stayed because I felt comfortable here. I knew that I had the experience to do that. I knew that I had the experience to conduct a classroom, even though I hated it. I hated being a teacher. I love the kids. Again, I have to keep saying that every single time. The kids were never the issue. I just don't like being a teacher. I don't like grading. I don't like what comes with being a teacher. I don't like PDs. I don't like staying after school. I don't want to talk to everybody's parents. I don't want to do that stuff. And there's no shade to people who enjoy it and who love it. I'm not throwing any shade at teachers at all. I'm just saying for the pay that I'm getting and for the stress that I'm under, it's not cutting it for me. And so I stayed in this industry because I felt comfortable here. I knew that I could execute on it. Even if I hated it so much, I knew I could do it and I could do it well. And the issue with that is that when you stay in a place where you're comfortable, even though you know this is not where you want to be, at some point you have no choice but to address that. You have no choice but to address the fact that like you're unhappy in this comfortability, but you're so stuck in your comfortability that you can't move. You can't move, you can't execute. And so there will always come a point in time where you're faced with the reality of like you're stuck in your comfort zone and it's getting you nowhere. And you have to make a decision of, do I want to be uncomfortable staying in my comfort zone and doing something that I possibly don't enjoy for the rest of my life? Or do I want to be temporarily uncomfortable and maybe move to a different state, move to a different industry, meet new people, whatever the case may be, go to school again, whatever applies for your life? Do I want to be temporarily uncomfortable to get everlasting change that is going to make me happy, right? For my instance, I'm sticking to the comfortability of working in education because I have that experience. But do I want to be temporarily uncomfortable and move to a different state, switch industries, and go back to school, knowing full and well that I'm going to school for something that I want to do, I'm moving to a state that I want to live in, and I'm going to be working in an industry that makes me happy? I'd rather be temporarily uncomfortable and be in this realm and be in this aspect of doing the things that I want to do, because that change will make me happy. I'll be working in an industry for however many years to come that makes me happy, instead of staying in this comfort zone and being miserable, getting paid garbage, not feeling like I'm appreciated in my job, X, Y, and Z. Again, this is my own personal experience. I'm not going to speak for all teachers. If you feel the same way, you can definitely agree. If you disagree, that's perfectly okay too. I don't want to generalize my experience for all teachers, because I know there are some teachers out there and there are some educators out there who really love their job. So I'm not shitting on teachers in any way, shape, or form. I'm just shitting on my own personal experience, and that's okay for me. With that too, I just want to say that you can never run away from or escape your passions, your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, the plan that God has for you. I get that not everybody believes in God. Apply it to your faith and your religion however you see fit. You cannot run away from those things. You can try all you want, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to face it at some point. You might face it in your dreams. You might face it in daydreams. You might face it in your day-to-day interactions. You might even face it when you're just sitting alone, just thinking to yourself. You can never really escape what it is that you want to do in reality. You can try it all you want. You can stick to your comfort zone all you want, but there's no way to avoid what you're really called to do. And so I just want to preface that again. You will always have to face at some point or another. It doesn't matter if you're 25, 35, 55, 65, whatever. You're going to have to be faced with the question of, do you want to be uncomfortable for a long period of time and stay in the comfort zone? Or do you want to be uncomfortable for a short amount of time and be in the discomfort zone and get to where you want to be and be happy? Do the thing that calls you. Do the things that makes you passionate and makes you fulfilled. You have to start weighing out your options. I don't know about y'all, but I'm choosing to be temporarily uncomfortable because I know that in the end, I'm going to be where I want to be. 1, and 2, we're always going to be faced with challenges that are going to make us uncomfortable. And if we learn how to be in the discomfort zone, we learn how to face those challenges and how to move and execute when that comes again, because it's undeniable that that will not happen to you, right? It's undeniable that you won't have to face some sort of discomfort again, some sort of change again, some sort of significance that you've never faced before. And so you want to be able to have the skills and be equipped to handle it and execute in the way that's beneficial for you, instead of retreating and feeling like, I don't know how to handle change. I don't know how to handle discomfort. So I'm just going to stick right here and stay in this box. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work for you. And you're just doing yourself a disservice by staying in your comfort zone. All right. Let's move to the next section of this topic, which is unlearning what you've always known and the truth about that. Unlearning what you've always known to be true in your life is very difficult. I think that unlearning what you've always known to be true, adopting a new mindset is very challenging, because think about it. You only know this way of thinking or believing for your entire life. I'm 23, right? Let's take me for example. 23 years of living. Well, let's just do 18, because that's what I've known since I lived in my home, my family home, right? 18 years of living. This is what I was taught to think. This is what I was taught to believe, X, Y, and Z. And it's not until I leave this environment, get uncomfortable, go somewhere else, and learn that there are other ways to think, there are other ways to believe, and this is not necessarily the truth, right? This is just the truth that I have been told. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth for everyone, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the truth for me. So figuring out what is true for me is very hard, and what it might be true for you is going to be very hard, because in all honesty, you're operating off of what you've already known your entire life, trying to decide, well, is this necessarily beneficial for me? Is this healthy for me? is this even true for me? And if it's not, now you're still operating in this way, and you're trying to learn how to operate in a new way. Because in all honesty, it's not like this aspect right here of operating the way you have for the last X amount of years just goes away, right? You have to move into transition, and it's very uncomfortable because you're going from, in some cases, two very different ends of the spectrum, right? You're going from believing that you can't obtain wealth because of X, Y, and Z to I can't obtain wealth because of X, Y, and Z. Two completely different opposite ends of the spectrum. And so now you're trying to figure out, like, how do I get from point A to point B in the smoothest transition possible to be smooth? And you're going to have to get comfortable with that. I can't even lie to you about that. There's no way to get around it. And you want to embrace that, because when you're uncomfortable, that's when you learn the most. That's when you develop the most. And that's when you get to appreciate the journey and what you're learning the most. Brief intermission. Sorry, y'all. I have a roommate. And so if you hear stuff in the background, I sincerely apologize. Nothing I can do about it. But we're just going to keep moving on. Anyways, as I was saying, unlearning what you've known to be true your entire life is extremely difficult because that's all you know. And until you get comfortable with a new mindset shift, a new thought process, a new set of beliefs, you're still operating in that, and you're trying to navigate how to get to the point where you want to be in terms of your thoughts and your beliefs, etc. And so there are going to be times where you really feel like this is impossible, where you really feel like you cannot do this, and you might even make mistakes. You might retreat back to your old beliefs, your old thoughts, etc. And that's when you really need to just give yourself the most grace that you possibly can, because you're learning as you go. Very rarely do we get chances in life where we get to practice before we execute. In this instance, you're practicing and executing at the same time, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so all you can do is give yourself grace, allow yourself to make the mistakes, and be vulnerable with that and move forward. And if you find that you've reverted entirely back to where you started, back to point A, that's perfectly fine. We're all going to fall down. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to revert back to what's comfortable to us, because that's how we're trained to believe. That's what we're trained to do. We're trained to resort to comfortability as human beings in general. If you find that you've reverted entirely back to point A, and you know that point A is not where you want to be, start over again. Give yourself the grace for making the mistake. Give yourself the grace for reverting back to where you didn't want to be. Acknowledge that, and make the decision to move forward from there. There's no need to hold and harbor resentment towards yourself. And there's definitely no need to say, like, I can't do it anymore because I did it once and then I reverted back. Keep going. You might have to make a couple of different attempts before you finally get to where you want to be overall. Keep going, because it's going to happen anyway. And you don't want to get stuck in this mindset of, like, I can only stay here, because, again, staying in your comfort zone doesn't really get you to where you want to be. It doesn't get you anywhere in the end. When you find yourself reverting back to the thought processes or the beliefs or whatever the case may be that you originally had, that you're trying to move away from, this is when you really want to stand on business the most and remind yourself, like, why you're making this change for yourself, why you're trying to grow, and why you're trying to be uncomfortable and get to a new place in your life, and really just highlight, I'm doing this because I want to get to here. I'm doing this because I want to be a better person. I'm doing this because, I'm doing this because, I'm doing this because. When you continue to remind yourself of the why, it makes you want to continue. It makes you want to keep going. It makes you want to keep pushing, even when it's difficult, even when the easiest thing you could possibly do is revert back to what you already know. It's going to happen. We've all been there. We're all going to be there if we haven't been there yet. And there's no shade to that at all. Really stand on business. Y'all seen that TikTok video where it's like, how hard are you standing on business? The person is like stomping on something on the floor. Stand on business like that. Stomp on it. Understand that you're going to get to where you want to be, but you're only going to get there if you stand on business and you continue to remind yourself of the why and you execute on your why. You're going to get there, I promise. All right, y'all. Moving on from that, I'm going to share 4 areas of my life where I'm learning to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I might have already started the process in this area, or this is something that I'm just starting for the first time. Regardless, I thought it would be beneficial for me to share it with you. And so the 4 areas of my life where I want to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable are my overall health, my finances, promoting myself, and my relationship with God. So I'm just going to go through each one of them. The first one being my overall health. This includes mental, emotional, and physical health. And some of the things that I want to do to get comfortable with being uncomfortable is eating better and working out on a consistent schedule. I am somebody who does really well and then falls off, and then does really well and then falls off. I want to be able to just do really well and continue to do really well. Life happens. There are going to be points in time where we have to fall off just because life be life and it works that way, and that's fine. But I don't want it to be I do really well and I fall off because I'm self-sabotaging. Anybody who self-sabotages, I'm really calling myself out, and that's okay. Anybody who self-sabotages understands that when things are going so well and you're not used to that, you find a way to fuck it up for yourself so that it doesn't fuck up on somebody else's terms. And I find that I do that a lot with certain things in my life, and so I don't want to do that. I want to grow out of that. I want to be healthy enough to know that things can go good and continue to go good, and when things fall off, when things aren't so good, it's always going to be a better day tomorrow, next week, whatever the case may be, and I can keep going. So I want to get better with that. Another area in my life where I want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable is having a good relationship with food. I don't have an eating disorder. I wouldn't say that I have that. What I will say is that I've classified foods as good or bad, and when I'm eating a lot of the bad foods, I tend to villainize like my diet, and I tend to villainize the food, and I find that I'm afraid to eat these foods and enjoy them because I know that they're quote unquote bad for me. I know that they're not something that's going to help me achieve my goal, and I find that to be unhealthy because life is supposed to be about balance, and I should be able to enjoy the foods that I want to enjoy and still have a good relationship with them and not villainize myself for eating them, etc. So that's something I want to work on. The next thing is regulating my emotions, learning how to calm myself when I'm anxious or when I'm stressed out. As somebody who does struggle with anxiety, this happens on a day-to-day basis. And I find that sometimes I'm so used to being stressed out that I have to figure out how to regulate myself. And I don't necessarily see it until I'm at even higher points of stress in my life. So I don't want it to be like that. I just want to be able to acknowledge like, I feel like I'm not necessarily taking full breaths. Let me figure out how to calm myself down. I also want to figure out how to regulate my emotions when I'm angry. I am somebody who bottles up their anger. I'm not a fan of releasing my anger because I've only ever been demonstrated in my personal life how to release anger in such unhealthy ways, and I'm not a fan of that. I understand that there are healthy ways to release my anger. I just haven't figured out how to do that for myself, and so that is something that I want to work on. And the last thing for this bucket of overall health is addressing my deep-rooted traumas, the ones that are too painful to address. I can't avoid those forever. I can't pretend like they don't exist, and I can't just bottle them up and not talk about them. The reality of it is, like, those things have happened, those things I've gone through, and I'm on the other side of them now, and I can definitely say that. But I want to make sure that they're not holding strongholds in my life, that they're not suffocating me in areas that I'm not even noticing. I want to be able to address those in a healthy way and let them go. All right, number 2, finances. I am working on a couple different areas on how to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in terms of finances. And so the first thing is getting comfortable with saving in a way that makes sense to me. I'm learning that I'm not somebody who can just save just because. That doesn't work for me. I'm somebody who needs to save towards a goal, and there needs to be a time constraint on it, and it has to be soon. It can't just be like, in 10 years from now, I want to be able to build my own home, and I have to just save until then. Go from there. I want to have another $1,000 towards my dream home in the next 3 months after that. Go from there. I'm finding that that works best for me because it keeps it almost relevant. That's how my brain operates in terms of money. Is like, if it's a short period amount of time that I'm trying to reach a goal and I keep it relevant and I keep it moving in my brain, it'll allow me to save the money. But for extended periods of time with no goal in mind, I can't do that. I understand emergency funds, for example, are very important. My brain just doesn't allow me to save money that way, and that's probably something that I need to unlearn also. But I need to be like, okay, I need to save X amount of dollars and I only have this long, and do it. And I will do it if it's something I genuinely want. That is something I need to work on. The next thing is educating myself about money, ways to grow my wealth, ways to create a legacy, and ways to build a financial standing and a financial ground to support a business that I want to have in the future. I'm finding that I don't know anything about money. I don't know shit about money. And I can be honest about that. We don't learn anything about money in school. And I want to be able to have that education because I'm looking long term. I want to be wealthy. I want my kids to be wealthy. I want my kids' kids to be wealthy, and so on and so forth. I'm looking to create generational wealth. And I can't do that with no knowledge whatsoever. So I want to start getting comfortable with educating myself and understanding that there are going to be points in time where I'm antsy and I'm like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. Like, I'm not used to talking about money. I'm not used to like being held accountable for my money in a certain way, and understanding that that's okay to feel that way. But bottom line is, we need to be uncomfortable for a short period amount of time to get to where we want to be. Next thing is getting comfortable with spending money in a way that is healthy mindset and not a scarcity mindset. I'm going to say a decent amount of people I have no problem spending money, especially in today's economy. Jesus, you can't even go outside and breathe without spending money. But what I will say is I want to get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm going to drop $5K on this vacation for the experience, for the memories, etc., to treat myself and understand that the money is coming back to me. I don't need to clench onto the money as if I'm never going to get money again and hold on to it for dear life, because it's not going to grow in my savings account. Let's be real. It's not going to grow there. And I deserve to experience the world. I deserve to treat myself to a vacation. I deserve to have experiences of my own and know that the money is going to come back to me. There's never not going to be a point in time where I'm not working for money in some way, shape, or form, or where my money is not working for me, because hallelujah, we're going to get there. So understanding that I can spend money in a healthy way and understand that it's going to come back to me at some point and it's going to be okay. As long as I'm being responsible and reasonable with my money, that's all I need to know. And the last thing is forgiving myself for the money mistakes that I've made in the past and correcting my ways moving forward. Man, I am young and smart. I just have to say that. But when it comes to money, I am young and very, 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 very dumb. I can't even lie. But again, that all comes from generational trauma, generational patterns, and unlearning what I know about money. And so I'm okay with that. I can give myself the grace to understand that I was just learning at the time, and I'm still learning as I go. I'm practicing and executing at the same time. Something I want to be able to do is forgive myself for the ways that I may have spent my money in ways that weren't beneficial for me, and understand like there's nothing I can do about it now. I can't get the money back as much as I would love to get my money back. I can't get my money back, and all I can do is move forward and make sure that I don't make those mistakes moving forward. The third area in my life that I want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with is promoting myself. I find it very, very uncomfortable to promote my podcast. I don't know what it is about that. Sorry, y'all, if you can hear the train. I don't know what it is about feeling uncomfortable about promoting the podcast. I just don't talk about it that much. I don't really post on social media that much as I used to promote myself. I don't know what it is about that, but that's something that I want to work on. Next thing is promoting my strengths and what I want to do. Same thing with that. I'm just very uncomfortable with talking about my strengths and talking about myself for long periods of time in a way that's not relevant to this podcast at all. I can talk about myself in this aspect because I know that it's helping people, but when it comes to talking about myself, like just talk about myself, try and get myself where I want to be, sometimes it's very uncomfortable. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I do know why that is. I remember when I was younger, somebody told me that all I ever do is talk about myself and that I'm selfish. So ever since they told me that, I find it very uncomfortable to talk about myself, and I'm hyper aware of anytime I say I. And it just makes me feel uncomfortable because I don't want to be a selfish person. I don't think I've ever been a selfish person, but you know, me and this person aren't even like cool like that. So yeah, it's something that still bothers me to this day. But what I will say is that might be the reason why I don't like talking about myself, why I don't like promoting my podcast, why I don't like promoting myself. But I think that there's also some other things to it. I'm just a naturally introverted person. I'm not somebody that's very outgoing unless it's necessary. Sometimes if I'm comfortable, but I'm just not that extroverted. And so I don't like drawing too much attention to myself. I just want to operate and go. And so I need to be able to grow out of that, especially with where I'm trying to get to. If I want this podcast to go where I want it to go, right, I'm going to be drawing attention to myself in terms of what I want to do for a career. I'm going to be drawing attention to myself. And so I need to get comfortable with doing that and understanding like I'm the shit and I can talk about my podcast all I want, and I can talk about my strengths all I want in a healthy way. That's something that I really want to work on in terms of promoting myself and getting myself to where I want to be. And the last aspect of my life that I really want to work on being comfortable with being uncomfortable is my relationship with God. Now, if you're not religious or if you're not necessarily rooted in faith, there's nothing wrong with that. No shade to that at all. You can skip this part if you want to. If you want to learn a little bit more, you can listen as well. Choice is yours. But I am going to be talking about God. I love me some God. So I want to be able to get comfortable with building a better relationship with God. I was laying in bed the other night and I was getting ready to like say my nightly prayer, go to sleep, and it just dawned on me. I'm like, I'm very uncomfortable with receiving the love that God has for me. I know that God loves me so much. God has forgiven me for all the things that I might not even have been able to forgive myself for yet. And I don't know how to receive that. I don't know how to receive a love that's so unconditional. It's very uncomfortable. And I tend to run away from it. I tend to run away from God. I tend to run away from my faith because I don't know how to accept that. So I want to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I want to get comfortable with accepting God's love and accepting the plans that God has for me and really embracing that. At the end of the day, I want what God has for me. I want to walk in the plan and in the path that God has for me, and understanding that that might also come with extra discomfort that I didn't plan for. We all have a plan in our mind of what our life is supposed to look like, and it might have nothing to do with God's plan at all. And so when I was sitting there the other day in bed thinking about it, I'm just like, I'm so worried about my plan, and I don't even know if my plan is in alignment with your plan. I only want what you have for me, because at the end of the day, what you have for me is probably something I couldn't even have imagined. A happiness I couldn't have imagined, a wealth I couldn't have imagined, a platform that I couldn't have imagined for others, more importantly. And so I want that. I want to be able to receive what God has for me and understand that I need to let go of my expectations of what my life is supposed to look like, because it may not even be the plan that God has for me, and all I'm doing is running on the hamster wheel, believing that this is the life I'm supposed to have, when in reality I'm supposed to have this life over here, and understanding that it might have to come with sacrifices that I didn't want to make. But I have to decide, do I want to continue to run on the hamster wheel chasing this worldly life, or do I want to chase the life that God has for me instead? The next thing is, I want to get comfortable with being in my word. I want to be able to read the Bible more comfortably. I don't necessarily know like how to quote unquote read the Bible. I know that there's no good or like specific way to read it. There's different ways to read and study the Bible, but I want to get comfortable with that and just being able to say like, I'm going to read from here to here. I'm going to analyze it. I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to be comfortable with that. Something that I've been doing actually to help with that is I do a weekly Bible study with some of my closest friends, and I freaking love it. It's been super beneficial. We're all from different areas in our journey with God and so on and so forth. And so I'm learning from them, and I'm learning how to grow in my faith and in my religion. And it's probably one of the most calming times of the week for me, and I love it. And the last thing is praying consistently for the good times and the bad time. I saw a video the other day on Instagram. If I find it, I'll share it. And it was essentially a video that talked about how when we're going through hard times and we don't want to face the things that we have to face, we run away from God. We run away from prayer, because that will require us to think about it. It would require us to talk about it. The video essentially talked about how God didn't create prayer for you to run away from your problems. God created prayer for you to have a solution to your problems, to go to him with your problems, and to understand that he will fix your problems, that he will solve your problems. There's always a solution from God himself. Sometimes all you got to do is give him the problem. And we're so busy trying to solve the problem for ourselves, me included. I ain't trying to say nobody at all. We're so busy trying to solve our problems for ourselves. All we're doing is delaying what we could have gotten if we had just taken it to God and give it time. That's the other thing too. Don't just take it to God and think that tomorrow he's going to solve the problem. No, take it to God, continue to take it to God, and just let it ride out. Be patient. Whatever he tells you to do, do it. And I can do a whole other episode about like hearing God's voice and all that extra stuff, and I probably will. Those are the aspects of my life that I'm really trying to work on and just grow and get comfortable with being uncomfortable in my life. All right, y'all, we've reached the affirmation portion of the episode. And so the affirmation for this week's podcast episode is pretty long, but the affirmation for this week is, I will grow when I'm most uncomfortable. This discomfort is only temporary, but the change lasts a lifetime. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 3 times. If you want to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to write this down, however you want to speak this positivity onto your life, find a way to do so. I will grow when I'm most uncomfortable. This discomfort is only temporary, but the change lasts a lifetime. I will grow when I'm most uncomfortable. This discomfort is only temporary, but the change lasts a lifetime. I will grow when I'm most uncomfortable. This discomfort is only temporary, but the change lasts a lifetime. All right, y'all, that's all I have for you for today's episode. Let me know your thoughts on today's episode. Did you learn something new? Is there something that I didn't touch on? What are your thoughts about being comfortable in terms of discomfort? Let me know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you can go ahead to the HSL Pod IG. That's where I'm the most active. I'm going to work on posting more, I swear, especially over this break. So let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you have some topics that you want me to talk about. And if there's anything you feel like I missed, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And until then, I'm going to catch y'all in the next episode. See ya.